He held no noble title. He commanded no legions. Yet his words echoed so powerfully that they shook the very foundations of Rome's dictators. This is Marcus Tullius Cicero, the lawyer who dared to challenge tyrants armed with nothing but the power of rhetoric. What drives a man to risk everything, his status, his family, even his own life, to defend a republic that was already falling into the abyss? In a world where armies clashed and emperors ruled by the sword, could mere ideas prove mightier than steel? Picture this: a young man from a small town called Arpinum, born into a family of no particular importance. He wasn't supposed to shake the marble columns of power. He wasn't meant to stand in the Roman Senate. Yet through sheer brilliance and the mastery of words, he rose to become the greatest orator history has ever known. Today on Imperium Chronicles, we'll witness an extraordinary journey. You'll discover how this outsider transformed himself into Rome's most powerful voice. You'll see him expose conspiracies that threatened to tear the Republic apart. You'll watch as he stood face to face with Julius Caesar, speaking truth to power when others cowered in silence. And ultimately, you'll learn how his unwavering loyalty to liberty would demand the ultimate price. This isn't just another tale from ancient times. This is a story about the raw power of words to change the world. About one man who dared to believe that truth, spoken with courage and conviction, could stand against armies. About how ideas, once unleashed, can outlive their speaker and echo through the centuries. So join us as we step back in time to an age when Rome stood at the crossroads between republic and empire. Like, share, and subscribe to Imperium Chronicles as we uncover the secrets of antiquity together. For in Cicero's story, we might just find echoes of our own times and lessons that still resonate 2,000 years later. Imagine walking into the Roman Senate where every face belongs to someone whose family name stretches back centuries. Their ancestors' marble busts line the halls, their family trees intertwined with Rome's very foundations. And then there's you, the newcomer, the outsider, the one they call the novus homo, the new man. This was Cicero's reality. Born in a small town called Arpinum, about 70 miles from Rome, he entered the world far from the gilded halls of power. His father was a member of the equestrian order, comfortable, yes, but worlds away from the patrician elite who ruled Rome. In their eyes, he might as well have been speaking to them from across an ocean. But young Marcus had a secret weapon, one that would prove more powerful than any ancestral name. While the sons of nobles spent their days hunting and attending lavish parties, Cicero devoted himself to learning. He studied until his eyes burned in the lamplight. He memorized poetry, mastered Greek, and absorbed every philosophical text he could find. His mind became a razor-sharp instrument, honed by countless hours of practice in rhetoric and debate. Think about this. In a world where most patricians spoke only Latin, Cicero could switch effortlessly between Latin and Greek, quoting Homer and Plato as easily as breathing. He studied under the greatest minds of his time, Apollonius Molon in Rhodes, who taught him the art of moving crowds with words, and Philo of Larissa, who opened his mind to the depths of philosophy. But here's the real challenge that faced our ambitious outsider. How could he make these ancient families, these living monuments to tradition, listen to someone they saw as little more than an educated commoner? The Senate chamber was a battlefield of its own kind, where your family name often spoke louder than your words. Yet Cicero had something these patricians didn't expect, a hunger that came from being the outsider. While they rested on their ancestral laurels, he worked tirelessly to perfect his craft. Every gesture, every word, every argument was calculated to command attention. He turned his outsider status into an advantage, presenting himself as a self-made man who embodied true Roman values better than those born to privilege. In an age where blood and birth determined your fate, Cicero dared to suggest that merit and intellect should matter more. He wasn't just fighting for his own voice to be heard, he was challenging the very foundations of Roman social hierarchy. And soon, very soon, these proud patricians would learn that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a famous name, but a brilliant mind armed with the right words. The year was 70 before Christ, and Rome was about to witness a legal drama that would make modern courtroom thrillers pale in comparison. The defendant? Gaius Verus, the former governor of Sicily, a man who had turned public service into a personal gold mine. But he was about to face something he never expected, a brilliant young lawyer named Marcus Tullius Cicero. Now, you might think corruption cases are boring, but wait until you hear what Verus did. This wasn't just about cooking the books or taking a few bribes. Verus had turned Sicily, Rome's oldest province, into his personal treasure chest. He stole priceless artworks from ancient temples, literally stripped the gold off sacred statues, and even pilfered ceremonial candlesticks from the hands of the gods themselves. Here's a detail that will make your blood boil. When pirates attacked Sicily's coast, Verus actually profited from it. Instead of protecting the people, he sold exemptions from military service and pocketed the money. He even executed Roman citizens without trial, a crime so serious it would make any Roman's toga twist in outrage. But Cicero had a masterstroke planned. Instead of following the usual lengthy trial procedure, he overwhelmed the court with evidence in the first hearing. He brought in witnesses from across Sicily, merchants, farmers, priests, each with their own horror story about Verus's greed. The evidence was so damning, so absolutely crushing, that Verus didn't even wait for the verdict. He fled Rome in the dead of night, choosing self-imposed exile over the humiliation of conviction. Yet here's where Cicero showed his true genius. He had prepared 5 more speeches for the trial, speeches that would never be delivered in court. But rather than let them go to waste, he published them as if they had been delivered. These became the famous Verrines, and they were the ancient world's equivalent of a viral sensation. Imagine this. Across Rome, people were reading Cicero's words, passing copies to their friends, discussing them in forums and marketplaces. He turned what could have been a simple court victory into a literary and political triumph. In these published speeches, he didn't just expose Verus's crimes, he painted a vivid picture of how power should and shouldn't be used. He showed Romans what good governance looked like by exposing its opposite. One particularly delicious moment came when Cicero described how Verus had stolen a statue of Mercury from a local family. The statue had been passed down through generations, brought out for special ceremonies and celebrations. When Verus's men came to take it, the family begged them to leave just this one piece. Cicero's description of their grief, contrasted with Verus's casual greed, became a powerful symbol of everything wrong with corrupt leadership. The Verus case transformed Cicero from a talented lawyer into a household name. He had done more than win a trial. He had shown that justice could triumph over power, that words could bring down even the most entitled of Rome's elite. And perhaps most importantly, he had proven that a new man, armed with nothing but talent and truth, could shake the very foundations of Rome's social order. The year was 63 before Christ. Rome was a powder keg waiting to explode, and Lucius Sergius Catilina was about to light the match. A patrician with expensive tastes and empty pockets, Catiline had a dangerous plan to overthrow the Republic itself. But he didn't count on one man standing in his way, the newly elected consul, Marcus Tullius Cicero. Picture the scene. The Roman Senate chamber filled with the most powerful men in the known world. Tension hangs thick in the air, and there sits Catiline, bold as brass among his fellow senators. Now imagine Cicero rising to speak, his voice cutting through the silence with words that would echo through history. "How long, Catiline, will you continue to abuse our patience?" The words struck like lightning. Cicero proceeded to lay bare the entire conspiracy. He revealed how Catiline had gathered an army outside the city, how he planned to burn Rome to the ground and murder its leading citizens, how his supporters had sworn blood oaths, sealing their pact with human sacrifice. Each revelation was another nail in Catiline's political coffin. But here's what makes this story truly fascinating. Cicero had no hard evidence he could present in court. What he did have was an incredible network of spies and informants. He even managed to turn Catiline's own followers against him. One of them, a noble woman named Fulvia, became his key intelligence source, passing information from her lover, one of the conspirators. The series of speeches Cicero delivered, now known as the Catilinarian orations, were masterpieces of political rhetoric. He didn't just expose the conspiracy, he painted Catiline as an enemy of everything Rome held sacred. Each word was carefully chosen to strip away Catiline's aristocratic facade and reveal the monster beneath. But then came the moment that would haunt Cicero for the rest of his life. When the conspirators were caught, he faced a crucial decision. As consul, he ordered their immediate execution without a formal trial, an action that was technically legal under emergency powers, but violated one of Rome's most sacred principles, the right of citizens to a public trial. The conspirators were strangled in Rome's underground prison, the Tullianum. Cicero announced their deaths to the waiting crowd with a single word: vixerunt. They have lived, a euphemistic way of saying they are dead. At the time, he was hailed as the savior of Rome, given the title Father of his country. But this decision would come back to haunt him. Years later, his enemies would use this very act to send him into exile, arguing that he had violated the rights of Roman citizens. Here's something remarkable. Cicero was the first Roman to publish his speeches as books, making him the ancient world's first political bestseller. These weren't just records of what happened. They were carefully edited and polished works of literature, designed to justify his actions to future generations. Think of it as the ancient equivalent of a political memoir going viral on social media. Would you have the courage to face down a conspiracy with nothing but words? Would you risk everything to defend your principles? Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments below. Remember, Cicero chose to fight tyranny with the power of speech and changed the course of history forever. While others saw glory in Julius Caesar's victories, Cicero saw something far more dangerous: the death of the Republic itself. From the very beginning, he recognized in Caesar what many others failed to see, an ambition that couldn't be contained by law or tradition. Think about this. While the crowds cheered Caesar's triumphs in Gaul, Cicero was writing private letters warning his friends about the growing threat. He saw how Caesar used his military victories to build a personal following, how he bought loyalty with plunder, and how he slowly undermined the very institutions that had made Rome great. In his private correspondence, Cicero compared Caesar to Sulla, the dictator who had terrorized Rome during his youth. But there was a crucial difference. While Sulla had eventually stepped down from power, Cicero knew Caesar would never willingly let go. As he wrote to his friend Atticus, he thinks about nothing except dominion. The tension between these two titans of Roman history was fascinating. Caesar recognized Cicero's brilliance and repeatedly tried to win him over. He offered him positions of power, praised his intellect, and even forgave him for supporting Pompey in the Civil War. But Cicero couldn't be bought. For him, the Republic wasn't just a system of government. It was the embodiment of liberty itself. Then came the Ides of March, 44 before Christ. When Caesar fell under the daggers of the conspirators, Cicero initially celebrated. He believed Rome's freedom had been restored. In a moment of bitter irony, he wrote, "The tyrant is dead. Now justice and law can return." But here's where tragedy struck. What Cicero and the conspirators hadn't counted on was the chaos that would follow. Caesar's death created a power vacuum that would unleash forces far more dangerous than Caesar himself. Mark Antony, Caesar's former right-hand man, emerged as a new threat to freedom, and waiting in the wings was young Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, who would later become Augustus, Rome's first emperor. Cicero had won the battle against Caesar, but he was about to lose the war for Rome's soul. The republic he loved was dying, and its enemies were multiplying. As he would soon discover, sometimes the devil you know is better than the ones waiting to take his place. Here's a fascinating detail. During Caesar's reign, Cicero withdrew from public life and wrote some of his greatest philosophical works. Unable to fight in the Senate, he fought with his pen, writing about the ideal state and the meaning of true liberty. These works would later influence everything from the American Revolution to modern political theory. Even in forced silence, he found a way to make his voice heard across the centuries. The end came swiftly, and it came with vengeance. After Caesar's assassination, Mark Antony emerged as Rome's new strongman, and he had not forgotten Cicero's sharp tongue. The 14 speeches, known as the Philippics, in which Cicero had denounced Antony as a threat to liberty, would seal his fate. These weren't just political addresses. They were verbal weapons that stripped bare Antony's pretenses and exposed his tyrannical ambitions. Imagine Cicero's last days, the greatest orator of Rome, now an old man of 63, fleeing from villa to villa as Antony's assassins closed in. His friends begged him to leave Italy, to sail for Greece where he might find safety. At first, he tried, but the sea made him ill, and perhaps something deeper pulled at him, a feeling that running wasn't the answer. On a cold December morning, as he rested at his villa in Formiae, his slaves spotted the assassins approaching. They tried to carry him away in a litter through the woods, but Cicero knew it was time. He ordered them to stop. According to Plutarch, he pulled back the curtain of his litter, stretched out his neck, and met his death with remarkable dignity. But Antony's revenge wasn't satisfied with mere death. What happened next stands as one of the most chilling acts of political retribution in history. The assassins cut off Cicero's hands, the hands that had written those searing attacks against tyranny. They cut out his tongue, the tongue that had given voice to freedom. These grim trophies were nailed to the speaker's platform in the Roman Forum, the very place where Cicero had delivered his greatest speeches. Think about this moment. Roman citizens gathering in the Forum, looking up at those brutal tokens of revenge. Antony's wife, Fulvia, is said to have taken Cicero's tongue and repeatedly pierced it with her hairpin, a final, futile attempt to silence a voice that would echo through the ages. Yet here's the supreme irony. By trying to silence Cicero so brutally, Antony only amplified his voice. Those severed hands would write no more, that tongue would speak no more, but Cicero's words had already been preserved in hundreds of copied manuscripts, spreading across the Roman world. His ideas about justice, liberty, and the rule of law would survive to inspire future generations. In his final moments, Cicero embodied the republic he had spent his life defending. Both died fighting against tyranny, refusing to bow to the power of dictators. As he had once written, "I have lived long enough for either nature or glory." In the end, he achieved both, dying true to his principles and securing his place in history, not just as Rome's greatest orator, but as liberty's most eloquent defender. Perhaps the most powerful testament to Cicero's legacy is this. While Mark Antony is remembered primarily as Cleopatra's lover and Caesar's supporter, Cicero's words and ideas continue to shape our understanding of law, rhetoric, and democratic values to this day. His voice, far from being silenced, speaks to us still across 2,000 years of history. As Cicero's blood stained the Roman Forum in 43 before Christ, his assassins might have thought they had silenced the voice of liberty forever. But history has a way of proving tyrants wrong. While his severed hands and tongue were displayed as trophies, something far more powerful had already taken root: his ideas. You see, Cicero's words didn't die that day. They traveled across time, crossing oceans and centuries. When Thomas Jefferson sat down to draft the American Constitution, he had Cicero's writings on his desk. John Adams, another founding father, once wrote in his diary, "All the ages of the world have not produced a greater statesman and philosopher combined than Cicero." Think about it. A man from a small Italian town who lived 2,000 years ago helped shape the principles of modern democracy. His arguments for natural law, human rights, and constitutional government became the cornerstone of Western civilization. In a way, every time a court upholds justice or a citizen speaks freely against tyranny, Cicero wins again. But perhaps his greatest victory wasn't in the grand halls of power. It was in showing us that words backed by courage and conviction can change the world. When he stood in the Senate, Facing down conspirators and dictators, he wasn't just defending Rome, he was defending an idea. The idea that law should govern men, not men govern law. So what do you think? Did Cicero truly lose that day in the Forum? Or did his sacrifice ensure that his vision of justice and liberty would echo through the ages? If this journey through ancient Rome has moved you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What lesson from Cicero resonates most with you today? Perhaps it's his courage to speak truth to power, or his belief that education and eloquence can overcome any obstacle. Share your reflections in the comments below. And if you want to explore more epic tales from history, join our growing community at Imperium Chronicles. Hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and become part of our journey through time. Remember, every week brings a new adventure into the lives that shaped our world. Until our next historical expedition, keep thinking, keep questioning, and never underestimate the power of words to change history.